I'm Paul Sullivan, your host on the Company of Dads podcast, where we explore the sweet, sublime, silly, and strange aspects of being a lead dad in a world where the role still isn't considered normal. While most of the childcare is done by moms and paid caregivers, lead dads, whether we work full-time, part-time, or devote all of our time to our families, are here to step up. And the Company of Dads is here to bring together other lead dads and show that what we're doing is good for fathers, mothers, and the whole family system. Today, my guest is Roman Gaida, coming to us from Dusseldorf, Germany. Roman works for Mitsubishi Electric, where he heads up Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, with some 160 employees reporting to him. He has 2 kids, 5-year-old boys, and at the end of last year, he published his 3rd book, Working Dad, with a great subtitle, How to Combine Family and Career as an Active Father. The book was just published in German, but the cover says it all. A father with his briefcase slung over his shoulder, walking his 2 kids down the sidewalk. Roman's goal with the book is our goal, to help dads be active fathers, but at the same time, successful in their careers without putting all the care work onto their spouse. Roman, welcome to the Company of Dads podcast.
Thank you for the invitation, Paul.
What spurred you to write the book?
Actually, I was never thinking about writing a book because my grammar is so bad. But actually, as I wrote a few LinkedIn posts, the publisher approached me. So actually, they said, "Hey, that seems that you get a lot of interest in your articles and in the newspapers and everywhere because like you are a manager and talking about childcare. So that's unusual. We only have like teachers or people who have like not so stressful jobs and not like high careers and leading people who talk about childcare and care work. So that's new. Would you like to write a book? So and I thought like, oh my gosh, never wrote anything longer than one paper, but let's give it a try. And then it happened.
Yeah. What were some of those posts that stood out early on? What were you saying? Because again, you run a whole division at Mitsubishi Electric, which is a gigantic global company. What were some of those early posts that stood out to the publisher, but really resonated with people reading them?
Actually, the first post was in 2019 when I said career and taking care of your family and kids is possible as an active father. And then I stated out that you need to talk to your people, you need to talk to your employees, to your team. You need to be open about your situation, that you pick up your kids at 3:30 or 4 once or twice or 3 times a week, but work afterwards, so a little bit more flexible hours. And that probably was really new to the people, that somebody really says this loud without having fear to risk their career. So, and I was in my position as we had twins and our families living very far away. So I had there was no doubt that I have to do this, or I want to do this and want to have time with my kids. But I think it was pretty new to the people that someone in my position talks about it.
Plus, you were talking about it in 2019. So that is obviously before COVID-19, before the pandemic. We don't even know that this is coming back then. And I think, at least here in the States, people working from home, it changed a lot the way fathers thought about parenting. But you were ahead of the curve. And I guess in 2019, your boys were probably 18 months, 2 years old, so somewhere around there.
1.5 years.
Yeah. So what was it? Was it a conversation you had with your wife? Was it a conversation you were having at work? What spurred you to start talking, so openly about this?
Actually, when I took parental leave for 2 months ahead of this. So I know that this is probably not normal in the US now, but even not normal in Germany now. And what I did, I wrote a book. I read a book, from Bronnie Ware, 5 Things That People Regret Before They Die. Have you ever heard of it?
No. So, what a title, though. I hope I only regret 5. So.
But she's from Australia, and she wrote that. She was taking care of people in the last state of their life. And almost every man that she took care of said they would have wished to work less and spend more time with their family. And that really, caught my interest. So I was thinking about that and about like the next 40 years that I maybe have from now on, hopefully. And I thought about, so why should we recognize the importance of family and childcare and time with your family in the end of your life. So why should you wait another 40 years to, and you cannot go back, and you only can regret it. So why should we not change it now?
Yeah.
And nowadays, that when we're looking at the European and US economy, where we have the great resignation, we as dads, we have more possibilities than 20 years ago. So we can be more bold. So we can speak up and say, okay, we want both. And I really think that both is possible. And when I was also during my time when I was traveled a lot in the US, it's all about faster, higher, more money, more time, higher positions.
Yeah.
And in the end of your life, you regret it. So let's start to think about it now. How can I build up a career that is not maybe not so fast than other people, but you don't need to be a CEO at 30. So if you be a CEO at 50 and have spent a little bit more time with your family in between, you will have a much, let's say, better life, I would say, at the end of your life. If you just would focus on positions, money, and career.
And at that time in 2019, were you running this division, or did that come later on? When did you start running this division?
I started 2017 when the kids were born. So actually, I changed jobs from a Swiss company where I was globally responsible to Mitsubishi Electric in 2017. And right after I started this job, with having such a big responsibility, 3 months later, the kids were born.
Yeah.
So there was no doubt. We were 500 kilometers far from every family member. So there was no doubt that I need to support my wife, and I need to be there. And there's also scientific papers that I read about in the course of my book, that if you spend more time with your kids, your amygdala will react on it differently, and your oxytocin level will raise up in the same height like a mother. So there's no how can I say, you have to earn this feeling of missing your children.
Sure. It's not something that comes to you biologically. You have to earn it by being there early on. And what was, obviously people who are reading these posts, reading articles that you're writing, perhaps other managers, probably people that report, they responded positively. But what did your colleagues at Mitsubishi Electric say? I mean, they say, oh God, here's the new guy. The new guy just came in and now he's screwing everything up. What was their response, within your group and then within the broader company?
I would say it's a 50-50. So you have people who really like it. And later on in the Corona time, it was really appreciated by everyone, because everyone knew that I was open to this topic. So there's so many fathers that even don't try to talk with their boss about how to combine family and career, because they're afraid, even if they ask, it will already look like they are not so interested in having a career.
Yeah.
So and with me talking about it, the door was open for everyone. So it was really easy to talk about challenges that you have at home, not only with kids, but only with relatives, taking care of them, or whatever happens. You create a psychological safety in your company, that everyone is allowed to speak up and share their issues. So you have a much more open feedback culture in your company. In my division, I would say everybody appreciated. But of course, like divisions left or right, some or outside of the company ask me, hey, Roman, are you not afraid to risk your career there? Are you not afraid to, let's say, that some of your bosses will not like it? But actually, nobody said anything, because I did a good job. So
you were measured by your performance. You were measured by your outcome, not on, whether or not you spent, 12 hours in the office every single day. But what you raise is really interesting, because, early podcasts with Company Dads, we talked to this professor in Boston named Jamie Ladge, and she had done a lot of research on the different penalties that parents pay. Now, obviously, the working moms, they're penalized, compensation-wise, promotion-wise. That is awful and well-known. But what was lesser known is that men, pre-pandemic, if they raise their hands to be fully involved parents versus what I call event parents, if you're going to go to your 5-year-old's kindergarten graduation, nobody's going to say anything to you. If you're going to go to their sporting event, but to be fully involved, they raise their hand, they paid a penalty. But you setting an example, stepping forward, you're helping to to model the proper behavior. But let me ask you this, words are important, leading by example is important, but what, you've got 160 people who report to you, some number of those are fathers and mothers. What are some of the policies that you've been able to, put into place to help working fathers be great dads, but also still be great employees?
Expect leading with example, for sure. It's like time management. So you as a leader can put so much pressure on people with extended meetings, like hours of overwork, or writing 10 emails a day with new projects that are senseless, for example. So you can reduce, let's say, the workload for people by a lot if you think about, as a leader, what you should start, what you should stop, what you should wait for. So what we did, we developed a meeting culture that helped everyone. So we only do meetings for 20 or 50 minutes, and the agenda should be clear in advance. So there is no let's say, no explanation needed in the meeting. Then also, that we start and stop on time, and also we cluster meetings on the same day, that you don't, for example, have to switch from your topics all the time, because cost of switching is also something that is scientifically based not good for the people to get into their work again and get out of their work again. We don't do meetings between 9 and before 9, after 5. All these things reduce stress and workload for people. And as a leader, you should, let's say, just think about, okay, we run now 2 or 3 different sales projects. I have a third one in mind, or a fourth one in mind. So it would really be good to start it. So I just think about, okay, is my organization ready to do this? Do they have maybe enough workload? Is this necessary? Does it bring us value as a company? Does it increase sales immediately, or should I wait to shoot this email out? Because it's like a domino effect. You as a leader, you start something, and then 10 people ask 10 people and another 10 people how to do it, and in 2 weeks they ask me, hey Roman, we are finished, we have the presentation ready. Oh, what did you do? And so many leaders shoot out their ideas, and you just wait with some of the ideas, and the people will do a great job. So you should be really selective what you start, when you start, how you start. And that is a reflection that every leader should do. And then your fathers and mothers, they have much more time. Then you should be flexible. When should the work be done? The deadline should be clear. Then enabling is not delegating. So some people think okay, I enable my people. I sent them an email and to say what they should do until next week. So that's not enabling. That's delegating. So if you enable people to take decisions, they can also make plans on their own. So you also don't have to be every day there to control it. So you get more freedom, they get more freedom, and at the end they get more happiness in their work life.
This would be a radical idea in many companies in the United States, but what is the idea? Is it equally radical in Germany, or is it something that's becoming more accepted there?
It was radical. So it was radical when I started it, but now then we got into the Corona phase, and as we did things like this in advance, so it was much more easier for us to cope with it than other divisions, for example. So that also gave us the proof of concept that it was right what we did. Not only in the meaning of combining family and career, but also in the meaning of being more flexible at work. So I wrote a second book, which is called New Work in the Industry. So new work, this term is not so normal in the US, but it's about how to work. So how much more flexibility we can give to people to get better results, for example.
Yep. When you think about, this is what you've done as a leader, what has the response been among your 160 employees? How have they interpreted what you've done? Are they more productive, less productive, productive in a different way, wildly grateful, or do they ignore you when they see you in the hallway? What's the response
then? They don't ignore me anymore. No, at the beginning, of course, we had a really low fluctuation in the company. We had people that are end of 40s and in the middle of 50s. And so there was the former leader was there for 27 years. So there was no change at all for 27 years. And then I was coming with the age of 35 from a Swiss company. And we should do things different. So, but I don't try to do it from one day to the other. I try to do a little bit more to motivate the people, even the people that are longer in the company than me, that don't have kids, how I should say, the combination of family and career works in a company with a positive corporate culture. And corporate culture is not only about combining family and career. It's about every single detail in the company, how people interact with each other, how, let's say, success is measured in teams, for example, how you iconize people on their positions, how much they share knowledge, for example. And if you have a positive, let's say, corporate culture, you will have no problem to combine family and career, because everybody's allowed to speak about these topics. And that is already not existing in a lot of other companies, I think, not only in the US, but also in Germany and Europe.
Yeah, talk about that. I mean, recently you did some study at Stanford University in the States, Northern California. Everyone knows Stanford. What did you take away from that? Did you see any, uh, or things that are happening in the U.S. or maybe at least in the tech industry in Northern California that you could learn from, or do you think that what you're doing is that we're sort of behind in that you should be more beneficial to sort of help some of the leaders here in the States with the way you're thinking in Germany?
Actually, I would say there's a lot of change in the US too. So not only about the great resignation, but people rethink careers in the US the same way that people do in Europe or in Germany, for example. So I was at the course from Charles O'Reilly and Michael Tussman from the Harvard University. It was about leading organizational change and company renewal. So it was actually the topic that I did the years before. It was super interesting, and the way it changes from the transactional leadership to transformational leadership, where we really enable teams to think about themselves, and it's not the, let's say, the classical manager that you still know from the past. There's also things changing in the US, and I actually, what was really funny that Jeff Immelt was one of the teachers there, so everybody in the US knows him for sure.
Yeah.
And everybody asked him like questions about the business and how he runs his teams, and then I had the chance to also ask one question, and I asked him, how did you combine family and career? So it was like,
And what did he say? What did he say?
There was a little silence in between, but then he actually said, so yeah, family was everything I could manage. I couldn't manage like the weekends with my boys or with my friends a lot, but I took the time that I had with my family and was very, let's say he thought a lot about this answer. Let's say it like this, because people they don't get asked about this. They were all measured by success, but and when they go home and close the doors, the only thing that's left after their career is their family. And I mean, I'm totally sure that that some people in this level also regret something, so that they only took care about their career. And I think Jeff, he really said that he focused a lot on his family as well, because it was a stressful time to change GE. But I think that let's say, because people did careers like him for 20 years the way they do, they also start reflecting, was it the right way, or could it have been different?
And you think about somebody like Jeff Immelt. I mean, he took over GE from Jack Welch, who at one point was this completely revered CEO that you would model your whole career organization after. And of course, as people have sort of looked at him as a person and some of the changes he made and how he generated all this growth, they've sort of said maybe he wasn't as great of a CEO as we used to think. But for one thing, for sure, I think Jack Welch was married at least 3 times. So clearly, balancing family and work was difficult. But that was what Jeff Immelt was coming out of. Like back then, he was essentially anointed the CEO as if he was the next king to take over. When you think about, here you are, 35, you're able to, lead this division. It's a big early days in your career, early days as a parent. Other people who are listening to this, who are leading divisions or leading companies, what are the hardest things? What can they learn from you? What were the biggest challenges you had in changing the way people were going to think within your division about, you could be a great parent, but that didn't mean you were a great parent at the sacrifice of being a great worker. And you weren't going to be a great worker by foisting all the other parenting responsibilities off on your wife or spouse or partner. What can other people learn from what you did?
I would say one thing, that now I'm 40 actually, so I turned 40 last year. Started in 35 when I went in 2017.
You're old now, so now that
yeah, very old. Maybe it's a good camera that makes me shine a little bit more. But actually, I would say don't take every, let's say, opportunity you have. So in the last years, I described it in my book, I had possibilities to really skyrocket my career away a lot. So earn 3 times more than I earn now. And I just didn't do it because I knew that this time of the life of my kids will only be now. So it's a magical time when they are young. They will have other challenges. They will need you when they are 16 as well, but not the way that they need you now with the age of 1 to 6 or 7. So And there's also scientific papers about that the time from 0 to 4 years old, the kids make 50% of their progress in their learning in life. So don't miss this time. So even you wait another 2 or 3 years more to make the next career step, don't miss this time, because you will regret it. Like I said, with the in the book of Bronnie Ware, and that is really about how you define your success for yourself. So is it really to be CEO when you're 30? And is it worth it? Do you want this? I saw so many people. I see people in Germany who run big startups. So they are burned out when they're 30. Do you want this? So, and do you want a lot of money? Most people are not really happy if they have 10 or $15 million and don't have any job anymore. So they're not really happy. So,
or they're not happy if they have $15-20 million and their kids are miserable, or their kids are in crisis. I mean, that
I've never seen them.
Yeah.
So that I would think people can learn that if there is a job opportunity, you should really think what it costs, not what you get from it, what it costs.
Yeah. But I could imagine somebody, a new father in your division's like, well, what's this guy know? He's 40 years old. He's the big boss. He can set this policy, and then, who's going to, as long as we produce, he's going to be fine. But have you had any pushback from employees who said, okay, you can do this, but how are we going to do this? We have all these different things, all these different tasks to do. We want to have your job one day, but we're trying to balance this. Have you had any employees that have come to you and honestly sort of voice that, or do you ever sense that? And if so, what do you tell them?
I would say that they were not really said, I cannot do this. They ask, how can I do this? So they came to me, so how can I do it the same way that you do it, for example? So then we started about 2 or 3 years ago with the talents, no matter if it's a woman or man. We include, for example, parental leave in their development plan. So if I say, okay, I want to make 3 months off when my child is born, so we implant that or include that in their plan. So the training comes after, the promotion comes after, for example, so that they're not afraid if they do this, then I'm out of the career plan from my boss. So really we include it, and then it makes much more, like, the life much more easier. They're not so afraid that they risk their whole career. And then when you have like you build up your teams that everybody backs each other, then you are not afraid that whatever the division goes down if you are not there for 3 months. I would be a very bad leader if I would be out for 3 months and the company would be whatever destroyed or whatever.
Right. You need to make it more resilient so that you're not the only person who can make all the decisions. You have to sort of empower the people who report to you to make decisions independently, correct?
Exactly. But this also means for every independent worker, or it's the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Roman, this has been great. Thank you for your time today. I want to give you the last word. What was the thing that you learned from writing this book that you didn't think you would know at the start?
Actually, it's a reminder for myself. So at the end, so I don't know, you wrote a book too, I heard, or?
2 books. Yeah, I've written 2 books.
Yeah, exactly. So in the middle of the book, you think about, why the hell am I doing this?
Oh yeah.
So exactly. And then what really kept me going was that's a reminder for myself, because every once in a while I run into job opportunities where we're really about to jump in and go all in. And then this book really reminds me to, okay, what's really, really, let's say, meaning of success for me, and what's really important in life.
Yep. Roman Gaida, author of Working Dad, How to Combine Family and Career as an Active Father. Thank you again for joining me on the Company of Dads podcast.
Thank you very much, Paul. And by the way, we're still searching for a US publisher for the book. So if you know anyone.
Well, if it was written in Spanish, I could help you, but my German is non-existent. So.
The translation you get from us.
Will do. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Company of Dads podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. But I'm here to tell you it's just one of the many offerings we have at the Company of of Dads. We've got another podcast. We have a weekly newsletter. We have various features. We have events that we put on both online and in person. If you want to know about all of those, the best place to learn about them is to go to thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. That's thecompanyofdads.com/thedad. What do you get if you do that? That's how you sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Dad, which is a one-stop shop for all things Lead Dad. Thank you again for listening.